everyone, I'm Arlene Dickinson. Thanks for joining me on my podcast. I have been a longtime partner of TELUS because I value the support they provide to both local businesses and entrepreneurs. Recently, TELUS launched Stand With Owners. It's an initiative that's targeted to support Canadian small businesses during COVID-19 because now more than ever, we could all use a bit of help. And that's why TELUS and I have partnered to provide all of my listeners with an exclusive limited time offer. Right now, if you bring your business to TELUS, you can receive 20% off a mobility plan for business, and you also get the first 3 months free. That's right, free. Visit TELUS.com/reinvention to redeem this offer. Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Reinvention. Today I'm speaking with Steve Jenkins, one of the dads of Esther the Wonder Pig. Together with his partner Derek, they have done amazing things. They've reinvented themselves, they've reinvented their entire careers and their life, and they've done it based on trying to rescue and rehabilitate abandoned and abused farm animals. And they spread Esther's style of love and compassion everywhere, and it's known as the Esther effect. If you want to know more about the Esther effect, stay tuned. It's a fascinating story. Guess who I'm talking to, everybody? You're going to be so jealous. I'm talking to Steve Jenkins, who is one of the dads of Esther the Wonder Pig, who I am such a huge fan of. I'm such a huge fan of Esther, but I am an enormous fan of Steve and Derek, who are her dads. And I'm talking to you. You're in Campbellville, Ontario right now at your sanctuary. So hello, Steve. Thanks for joining me.
Hello, Arlene. Thank you so much for having me.
How's life on the sanctuary these days? How's everything going there?
Oh, well, I got to tell you, I'm pretty happy to be in our little bubble out here. It's gorgeous. I mean, the weather's finally getting better, and we're outside the city, of course. We're on a 50-acre property. It's been a sanctuary for us as much as it has been the animals, for sure.
And you opened that sanctuary. You know, we're talking today about reinvention and just and life in general, as we're all in, quarantine or isolation. And, your story, the story of reinvention that you and Derek have is really, it's not just fascinating, it's so inspirational. And I think, for those of you who aren't familiar with Esther, you adopted Esther back in 2012, right? You were living in Toronto in a little quiet neighborhood. Is that right?
That's right. Just outside Toronto in Georgetown. But yeah, right in the, the GTA in suburbia.
Right. And tell me the story. So you thought you were going to surprise Derek, right? Small little cat gift. Tell me about
surprise.
It. Surprise.
Oh man. So yeah, it was totally unexpected, and I just got a message on Facebook of all places from a girlfriend of mine from school that had this mini pig. I'm doing air quotations right now. Had this mini pig that needed a home. And she knew I was an animal lover and thought I might be interested. And obviously I was, but she kind of changed the story on me real quickly. I said, well, I'll get back to you in a day or two. Let me talk to Derek and, do a little bit of research, just kind of know what I'm getting into. But only a few hours after our first contact, she wrote back and said, oh, Steve, somebody else is interested. I need to know right away. Do you want it or not? I've got to make a decision. And I panicked and jumped on it. I hadn't told Derek, I hadn't done any of that research. And, within about 12, 14 hours, I was meeting this girl at my real estate office and picking up this tiny little 5-pound pig in a laundry basket. It was wild.
and you thought, oh, this is like this is going to be great. I'm going to have this little, teacup pig to take home. Yeah. And you were living, at your time, you were living in a very small bungalow, right?
That's it. Yeah. It was 1,000 square foot bungalow, like one of those kind of war style type of bungalows. We already had 2 dogs. We had 3 cats living in the house because we had a friend of ours was staying with us for a while she went back to school. So it was a busy house, and Esther was supposed to be 70 pounds, which is, the size of a small to medium-ish dog. So I was like, well, we definitely have room for that. I can make that work. And my mind made immediately to, I'm like, well, Derek's a magician. He can use her in his magic shows. I mean, how amazing is that? No magicians have pigs. So I started trying to come up with all these amazing reasons as to why we needed this mini pig. And went home to Derek and told him, here she is. And
How did he, like, like, I know Derek, like, so you said a couple things there that I think people listening would be fascinated by. First of all, you were a realtor at the time.
Yes.
Derek
Correct.
was a magician, right?
Yeah.
And still is a magician.
That's right.
But you guys had this, and I shouldn't say you were in a small house. You were in a regular sized home, 1,000 square foot home, and you had all these other animals, and you think you're going to come home to this, and bring another animal in, and Derek should be thrilled. Was he thrilled, or what was he?
Not at all. No, not at all. He was not happy at all. And he says to me after the fact, of course, he wasn't mad at Esther. He was mad that I came home without telling him. And I had done it about a year earlier with a cat. And he was really mad when I came home with Dolores. And it was a similar situation. I just felt like I had to take this cat. And I've done it since I was a kid, though, Arlene. I have this thing with animals. If I ever found something injured, it came home with me, or free cats or free puppies, or I was all over that stuff as a kid. My parents hated me for that sort of thing. So, they weren't surprised at all. Derek was still getting used to it. It was only Dolores was the first animal I'd ever just shown up with at home, and we managed it okay. But yeah, Esther was a different scenario, and rightfully so. We had no idea what we were doing. We didn't know how to take care of a pig. We didn't know anything about them. And as I said, the house was already relatively cozy with the 3 humans and 3 cats and 2 dogs. And, it was, that was his biggest concern was I hadn't spoken to him. But at the same time, I know, sometimes it's better to beg forgiveness than ask permission, because I don't know if I would have got permission, so I don't know how to navigate that sometimes.
So it's easier to beg forgiveness than ask permission sometimes, I guess.
That's right.
But when did you realize, like, at what point did you realize, okay, this pig is not going to stay small for long? Like, when did you realize she wasn't going to be 70 pounds, but she was going to be, is she 700 pounds now? How big is she?
At her biggest, she got to 650.
Yeah. Okay.
But she's actually lost some weight. She's 575 right now.
Okay.
But we didn't find out till a few weeks. I'd say 3 weeks to 4 weeks in. And the only reason it took so long is because we waited a little while to go to the vet. So as I said, Derek was pretty upset at first. And so she wasn't necessarily staying for those first few weeks. We were trying to kind of figure that out. And he fell in love with her just as quick as I did. She was just the crazy, funniest, cutest thing to be around when she was a piglet. Still is. I shouldn't say it like that. But by the time he agreed that she was in fact staying, and we found a vet and went to see this vet, was about 3 or 4 weeks. And within minutes of the vet seeing her, he knew something was up, and that's because of her cropped tail. So he took one look at her and said, "Oh, Steve, I think you got a problem on your hands."
What do you do at that point? So you get because I think most people, I mean, and I mean this, like, I think kindly, I think most people would at that point go, okay, we made a mistake. How do we move the pig to, a farm or somewhere? Like, we can't deal with a full size 600-pound animal in our home. But that's not at all what you did. Like, why did we're going to keep this pig?
Well, like I said, we fell in love with her really hard, really fast. Okay. And it was because of the personality and this expression on her face. I mean, she still has this little smile. And when she was a piglet, it was just even more pronounced. There was just something about her that we were really, really drawn to. And her intelligence was another thing. Even those first couple of weeks, we started to see little glimmers of behavior that we'd never seen in our puppies or our dogs before. And it was just, the best way I can describe it, Arlene, is just to say she was different. There was something about her that was different. And the minute he said, "I think she's a commercial pig," it was like a punch in the stomach, because even, a week earlier, a friend of mine had said, "Oh, Steve, you're never going to eat bacon again." And my immediate response was, "Oh, Jordan, don't be ridiculous. She's a different kind of pig."
Yeah.
I had that kind of, wall built up. I'm like, "Oh God, no, don't be silly." All of a sudden I found out that she was that type of pig. So that was a real punch in the stomach, and there was an immediate sense of guilt, and I was really upset about it. And then at the same time, I thought, but I'm madly in love with this pig, the way you would be if you had a puppy and you thought it was staying forever. And, a month in, somebody's like, oh no, we're taking it away. You'd be heartbroken. It was the same with her. I'm like, well, even sending her to a forever farm, how do you find that? Where are the places where people keep a pig like Esther forever and ever? At the time, we didn't know they existed at all, but that's probably part of the story we'll get to in a minute. So anyway, the other option, of course, was, well, she's going to market, and nobody, I can't imagine anybody anyway, knowing that's what's going to happen and being okay with it. So for us, it wasn't going to be an option. And I also really grabbed onto the fact the vet said, well, the minimum that you're looking at, Steve, is 250 pounds. Maximum, who knows? I can't tell you. So I really grabbed on to that 250 pounds. And so
I could do that.
Like I held right on to that. And when I went home to tell Derek, that's the figure that we discussed, so because he was, again, just coming around to it. And I thought, well, the last thing I can do right now is say, oh, by the way, she could be 200 to 700 pounds. I thought that was going to be, the last nail in the coffin, so to speak, quite literally for her. And so
maybe for you, Steve, as a partner.
Yes, true. So it was a really scary thought, and so I tried to manage how I presented the whole thing in order to make sure that, I had her for as long as possible. And if she was going to get bigger than that 250 pounds, then, we'd deal with that when we came to it. So that was kind of the approach that I took. And, it became obvious, though, Arlene, really quickly that 250 pounds wasn't going to stick either, because it was when she was 6 or 7 months old, she started growing at like a pound a day. It was unreal. It was unreal. So we knew, within about 6 months that it was way more than what we expected.
So your little pig lie turned into pig love, basically.
Correct. Right on.
A little bit of a half truth, but that's okay. Like, we do what we have to do sometimes to survive through relationships, and that's it. You were having a relationship with both Esther and with Derek. You had to manage those two things. I get it.
Correct. Oh man. Yeah.
So again, let's talk about Reinvention. There you guys are. I mean, we'll come back to how you two met, because I think that's a really interesting story as well. But there you guys are. You're a realtor. You're still a realtor, and Derek's still a magician. But now you're also more than that. You are one of the most well-known and successful animal activists in the world. And you've done that. You've really reinvented yourself through this process of love for animals and caring for animals in a way that is joyful and really spreads love to other people who observe you. But I want to go back to, there you are, you're in this home with 3 of you and the cats and the dogs and the pig. And what triggered, let's do something different. Let's do something bigger. How did you reinvent yourself into wanting to create a sanctuary for animals?
So step 1 was we became vegan. Yeah. And so that happened within a couple of weeks of finding out what we found out from the vet. And Derek was cooking bacon on the stove breakfast for dinner. It was one of the most popular things at our house. We loved it. And, a burger wasn't a burger if I didn't have bacon on it. Bacon was all over the place at our house. And so we're making breakfast for dinner, and Esther, and at the time our 2 dogs, Reuben and Shelby, were sitting there in a row at Derek's feet, waiting for samples, as they always did when something was being cooked. And so we could smell it, and we're looking at Esther, and the wheels in my head are turning, thinking about what I'd heard from the vet, and where might Esther be if she hadn't been with us. And,
right.
Derek and I made eye contact, and we both said, I can't eat that. And that was it. The bacon went in the garbage. We did eat our eggs, and the conversation at dinner that night was just like, well, we obviously can't eat pork anymore. And that was it. It was just going to be pork. But we started to watch some documentaries. So we started to watch stuff like Vegucated and Cowspiracy and really gentle stuff, because I'm not a graphic image person. I can't handle that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So, and I never have been able to, you know, I'm always, since I was a kid, saw one of those trucks on the highway, I'd cover my eyes. And, you know, I didn't want to know. Right. So anyway, we start watching these documentaries, and it really wasn't long before we're like, well, you know, we're not going to eat pigs. Like, how can we eat cows, and how can we eat chickens, and all these things that we're learning about pigs and how clever they are, and, you know, their personality and all this sort of stuff that we didn't think they had, you know, well, they're just born to be food. They're not smart. They're stupid. They're mean. They're all these things. That wasn't true. We're like, well, is that true about cows and chickens? And, you know, what are we doing? So it just snowballed. And within a few months, we became vegan. It was a step-by-step kind of process. And that was that. And then as Esther got a little bit bigger, even though we told ourselves that we wanted to keep her, there were times where we weren't sure whether we just could physically and emotionally handle it. Mm-hmm. You know, she was so hard to manage at times, and especially in those first kind of 6 to 8 months, as she started to get bigger and started to really figure herself out. She was getting into everything. And toilet training, you know, we started toilet training her to go in a litter box because she's a mini pig, right? Well, you would not believe how big of a litter box you need, Arlene, when they're 400 pounds.
I can imagine. Let alone changing that litter box. I don't know.
Oh my gosh. So we had to take the litter box away when she was like 4 or 5 months old. And then we're trying to train her. No, instead of going in that corner where you've gone for the first 4 months of your life, now you have to go outside. So now we're dealing with messes in the house. And it was so intense. And that's when we learned that farm sanctuaries even existed. Because we're like, what if we can't do this? You know, there has to be somewhere that she could go, that she'd be safe. And that's when we found out about farm sanctuaries. But they were struggling for money, and they didn't seem like the kind of place we wanted to put her, which is what forced us to see it through with Esther. Right? We said, okay, well, even the forever homes in our mind are not suitable. So if we can't send her to a forever home, she's definitely not going to market. We're her only option. So we better figure this out. And so that's what we did. And so we just kind of bunkered down and figured it out for about a year before it settled down enough that I said, okay, we're going to start a Facebook page. And that Facebook page was meant to just show friends and family that what it was like and what having Esther in the house was like, because they knew we had her, but we also lived in a town where she was illegal. So I wasn't putting her all over social media. We were keeping her as quiet as you can keep 450 pounds of piggy. We did a good job of keeping her under the radar, but started this dedicated page that didn't list our location, didn't list anything, and just invited our friends to come and like it. And that page went viral. It went from nothing to 100,000 likes in 80 days. Wow. And yeah, it was insane. And it was then that we thought, okay, well, we either need to pull down this page because of the legality things. We're just rubbing it in the town's face at this point. People know who we are and where we are, and it's not right. So we either needed to take down the page or we needed to move. And we went to a lawyer just to make sure that the town couldn't show up the next day and take Esther. Like, we wanted to know what kind of a timeline we were looking at if they came and said, you've got to get her out of here. And we knew we had a little bit of a window. So we thought, okay, well, we'll move. You know, we can leave the page up. We'll just move. And that we're just going to move snowballed into, well, if we're moving and all these people are watching, why don't we start a sanctuary, right? We know that they're struggling for money. We know that, you know, all these other issues that we've talked about previously, there's a need for it. Why don't we start one? And so we went to the page that, like I said, steadily growing. It was maybe 150,000 followers by that point, and told them what we wanted to do. And they were so supportive. We started a crowdfunding campaign, raised $440,000 in 60 days, wow, and bought this farm in Campbellville. So then we left our jobs and started this sanctuary, and we've basically been doing that full time. I still do the occasional real estate deal. Derek hasn't done magic for a couple of years now. But yeah, now we do that. So I do social media full time. Derek runs the sanctuary full time. And we've been here since November 2014. So that all, getting her to moving to the farm and going vegan, all that stuff happened in the span of about a year and a half.
Yeah. And was that so
Yeah,
do
crazy.
anything, in other words, you don't like to do anything small, Steve, including
No.
animals adopt. You don't like to do anything small. You and Derek are you big thinkers, but I'm would love to understand as you're going through that. I mean, you put up the page, which I think was really smart at a time when people weren't really, thinking about it the way you were thinking about it and how to engage people. You made the decision to raise for the sanctuary, and then you moved your entire life to now focus on animals and animal care, all in that space of time. What were the conversations like for you guys at home? Because I think people would be pretty interested to hear as you're reinventing yourselves and as you're making these life choices, because they're very big life choices.
Yeah.
Were you afraid of it? Were you at sometimes doubting yourself, or did you just barrel through?
It was both, I think, really, Arlene, to be totally honest. I mean, I'd be kidding myself if I said there wasn't times that we were both terrified. Both in while we were deciding to keep her. I know there were times that I was downstairs in tears, thinking we were going to have to get rid of her. And Derek would say, no, it's okay, it's okay. And there'd be other times where he would be in tears and I'd be telling him, no, it's fine, it's fine. So we both had our moments. And once the social media thing started to take off, again, it was like a roller coaster. First, we were terrified the town was coming to take her. And then we put in the offer on this farm, conditional upon raising all of that crazy money. And then for a time during the campaign, I mean, I don't know if you've ever had to do, well, you see, that's not true. Of course, you've just raised all kinds of money and for the food bank. But some of these campaigns, especially when you're trying to raise big sums of money in relatively short amounts of time, you don't really know what's going to happen. And we started really strong, and then it slowed right down a couple of weeks in, and then it just took off like a rocket the second half of the campaign. So there was that emotional thing. Well, what if we don't do it? How embarrassing if we fail? And then of course we hit the campaign and we're like, oh my God, we're committed. That might have been the scariest point, I think, to be honest, was when we actually had the money. Yeah. Because until that point we had the out. As embarrassing as it might have been, we could have said, well, I'm sorry guys, we just couldn't do it. We couldn't raise the money. We can't go forward, and downsized our plans. We were stretching ourselves with the first plan, and it ended up coming together. And yeah, I think that was the biggest, scariest point, because at that point we had to follow through. People had so much faith in us. We had the paperwork ready to go. That was it. Once we signed on the dotted line, that's when things got really serious. So I think that might have been the scariest moment. But at the same time, there's a lot of excitement there too. I mean, it's such a crazy thing. And we knew when we hit that campaign total, we're like, well, that's madness. Like nobody thought we were going to do that, including us. When we first started, we're like, well, what should we ask for? 250. And we're like, well, that's not enough. And it just kept getting bigger and bigger. And we're like, well, this is never going to work, and that's why we ended up at that 400,000. We're like, we've got to ask for at least 400 grand or we're just going to be screwed. Thinking about what we had to spend when we moved there, right. Knowing that we had to get a charitable status, like getting the farm was just the tip of the iceberg. We knew once we got there, we had to start this other corporation. We had to get it registered as a charity. We had to get all of the stuff that goes with running a charity set up, a board of directors and the legal fees and oh my God, the to-do list just all of a sudden exploded. And yeah, that was horrifying.
But I think, that's interesting because people always say to me, how do I get started? And I always say, first of all, you have to say it out loud. You have to, I think by saying it and by putting that page up and declaring yourselves, you made it real. And a lot of people, they have those dreams or they have those aspirations inside, but they never declare them to anybody else. But there is exactly as you described, Steve, there's this fear of potentially, what if it doesn't go right now that I've declared it to everybody? So now you're committed to it, right? And you spend more time and energy as a result trying to manifest it and help it to happen, which is exactly what the path was that you guys went on. So, I think the whole notion of declaring your vision or your dream and putting it out there for the world takes courage for sure. But you guys were also able to rely on your skill set. You are a realtor, so you could find the land. You were able to look at that, and you recognized good value for the property that you wanted. You negotiated it well. I mean, Derek being a magician, don't ever underestimate the power of somebody who knows how to make magic and make things appear.
Right?
Yeah, right. So, and that's
Tell me about it.
Yeah, like he made magic at that farm, and he created a magical place. I've had the benefit of going out to your farm and to the sanctuary, and it's magical. And it's magical because you guys, you have left an imprint on the land that is forever. It is, I think this notion of we rent land for future generations is what you guys demonstrate very, very well, and that you're there to make it better for the next generation, and whether that's the next generation of animals, people, the planet, and that's what is quite special about what the two of you have built and done. I
appreciate that very much.
Yeah, no, it's very true. Tell me, you and Derek have been together 19 years, I believe now.
Yes, isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us, you met working at Montana's Cookhouse, right, in Mississauga?
Correct. Yeah, of all places. I had a rib and steakhouse.
It is kind of ironic, but okay.
Right? Go figure. So I was a waiter and a bartender at the Montana's, and Derek came in as a table magician. So he would walk around and do table magic, and there was another waiter that was openly gay at the restaurant, and he let me know that he had a big crush on Derek, and I was not openly gay to anybody at that point. And I don't know what it was. There was just something about it when this other guy said, well, I really like Derek. I think I'm going to ask him out. It's weird. It's kind of like Esther. I panicked and I needed to have it. So it's exactly what happened. I panicked. I called Derek. I said, listen, I really need to talk to you. Went over and talked to him, and I said, hey, just so you know, this guy's got a real big crush on you. And Derek's like, oh God, no, I'm really not interested. I'm like, oh God, he's not even gay. But it turned out it wasn't interested in that particular person. But of course the conversation evolved, and eventually I managed to get to the point that I was in fact asking him out, and that was it. He was the very first person I ever told. And yeah, we've been together since. So it was very, very strange. I said, I think big and I act fast. It seems to be my way of working.
Yeah, well, but it has become you are not only just animal rights activist, you're also LGBTQ activist, and you're very vocal and very and unafraid, again, to be who you are. And I just, for all of us, we all need to just be who we are, and we need to be much more accepting and transparent with not just animals, but with people, of course. And I think that you have this enormous capacity for love. I mean, I know if I'm sounding a bit like your biggest fan, I probably am. But you and Derek, I have so much respect for who you are as humans. But you had some struggles. I mean, let's talk about 2017 when Esther.
Oh my gosh.
Esther gets sick. What was that like?
Well, the biggest thing with Esther is that she's now 7 years old, 5 at the time, which in pig years is ancient as far as the commercial farming industry is concerned. So when you try to get medical care for a pig like Esther or any of the other, we've got 22 or 23 other pigs here at the sanctuary now. When you're trying to get medical care for them, nobody knows what you're dealing with. And right down to the fact that we ended up having to, when she got sick last year, we just couldn't figure out what was going on. 2 years ago, we couldn't figure out what was going on. They didn't have equipment large enough to diagnose her. We had to get the crowdfunding out again, and we had to buy a CT scanner just so that they could tell us what was wrong. And we ended up finding breast cancer. So we were going through the process of treating her for breast cancer, and then we find out, well, she's not going to be able to have access to chemotherapy if she needs it because of the type of animal she is, because of the regulations that are in place that are just blanket for porcine animals, again, because of the way she's been labeled. And every single time it was a fight, for something, whether it was getting access to the right equipment or just them knowing what to do. And it has been an ordeal every single time. And last year she got sick again. We treated the cancer, of course. It was great. She's fantastic and was all clear. We didn't need chemo, which was good. But we got her back home and she started limping. And it turned out to be a bone infection. And the bone infection was antibiotic resistant. So we couldn't get rid of it. We ended up being in the hospital for almost 6 months. And they had to amputate her toe. But it's the same thing. We're like, well, we've never done this before. We don't know. We don't know if they'll survive. We don't know how long they'll survive. We don't know if there's going to be long-term damage to her other foot. So yeah, it's been a real struggle. Thankfully, the team at OBC is unbelievable. They've been so good to us. And they always work through it. But yeah, it's been really hard. It's been really hard.
Well, I was reading through all that. I mean, we were texting back and forth, and you were kind enough to keep me updated through that process. Mm-hmm. And I honestly was surprised and really dismayed when you told me that, what happens is that an animal isn't allowed to get chemotherapy treatment if they're classified as food. And I was like, it stopped me. I thought, well, there's lots of pets that, could be classified that way and shouldn't be, and should have every right to get treatment if they're, parents or owners. I'm not sure, is owners the right word to use in this case?
We call ourselves parents, but I answer to both.
So I know you're on a mission now to change those rules that affect animals, such as Esther, right? That Absolutely. Are now companion animals instead of part of the food chain.
Correct. Exactly. Because like you said, there are many people that have pets that would fall into this category, and sanctuaries now are becoming more popular, and even a pot-bellied pig would fall under that category. There weren't provisions in place. And it's been simple enough that we've been able to sign declarations with the hospital that agree that she would never enter the food chain and all this crazy stuff. But even that, I mean, not to get dramatic, but like, that's the last thing you want to have to be thinking about when you're trying to fix a problem. The last thing I want to hear is a phone call from the CFIA to make sure that my paperwork is in order.
Right.
It just kind of adds insult to injury, So yeah, it was a challenging situation. And they didn't really know why. They couldn't answer some basic questions that we had. I don't know how far down this road you want to go, but dealing with the CFIA was a real challenge, when we asked about quarantine requirements, because when we first found out we didn't have access to this equipment, but they have it in New York. We could have gone to Cornell University, but I'm not allowed to take Esther to Cornell. She could leave and go to Cornell, but I wouldn't be allowed to bring her back into Canada without putting her into a CFIA mandated quarantine facility. And I mean, come on, the last place I'm ever letting Esther spend the night is a Canadian Food Inspection Agency facility. I mean, it was crazy. And it's just because she's a pig. I could take a dog back and forth and I could stop at my friend had a pig farm. I could go with my dog and bring my dog back to Canada the same day. And that's no problem. But because she happens to be a pig, problem. It's weird.
I think it's, you're breaking new ground, through.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so you're going to encounter those types of challenges with organizations that aren't used to those things. And I do believe that these organizations will evolve and change as people,
That's just it, Arlene. It's because nobody's ever forced the question before, forced the issue. It's not because anybody wants to deny access to medical care. That is not the intention at all.
Right.
It's just that all of a sudden, when you start having to deal with a government agency, it's that's what the regulations say. I don't know what to tell you. And, then all of a sudden it's red tape this and red tape that, and nobody's doing it intentionally. Yeah. But like you said, it's a new road, which means you're going to encounter speed bumps and figure out how to navigate them. So it's just, when you seem to be always in the lead car, it gets annoying,
especially if there's no road for you to drive on, right? You're on the lead car in the middle of a forest.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Correct. But like I said, the people that we've been able to get access to, the team at Guelph University and the Ontario Veterinary College are just out of this world. They've done such amazing things. And, like I said, Esther was in the hospital for 6 months last year dealing with that toe problem. Unfortunately, we had a pig at our sanctuary that had the same thing come up this year. And she was in and out. She had the hospital visit. She had to have the toe amputated as well, unfortunately. But she was back home in 3 or 4 weeks, versus 6 months. And that's only because they finally knew how to handle it.
Yeah.
So
thanks for the advocacy on what you're doing there. I mean, you guys have continued to reinvent through all of this so you're going through all the challenges of opening the sanctuary. I imagine there's all sorts of relationship challenges that happen through all of those things. And then,
for sure.
And then you have all these animals that you brought in and fundraising activities, but no, you don't stop there. You decide to, I'm going to also create Esther's Kitchen, which is how we're going to do Esther approved meals at home and do recipes animal, planet, and body friendly. And then you say, no, that's not there. Let's do a children's book. And you write The True Adventures of Esther the Wonder Pig, which according to Esther's grandma is the greatest children's book of all time.
Certainly is.
And then you don't stop there. You say, wait a minute, let's sign a deal to do a feature film based on the life of I mean, honestly, like you have.
Well, we don't have a lot to do in the winter. It gets kind of quiet around the sanctuary, so we thought, why not? Let's.
That's so cool, and you go, and apparently you're producing the film with the Donner's Company, which did X-Men and Deadpool and really amazing films, and so you're obviously in good hands. I mean, just huge congrats, because now you can broadcast this story to the world in full cinematic glory and have people see what really this is about. I mean, how does that feel when you go back to the house and where you were and saying out loud what you wanted to do and finding the things you're good at and using them, and then having some core purpose in life about activism? And like, you must feel really, do you ever stop and feel good about what you're doing? Do you ever stop and go, wow, look what we did?
We do. Yeah, we do. We have the odd little moments. I mean, I think we keep ourselves busy enough that we don't have a whole lot of time for that. And I think we probably would, I've said this a couple times before to people, we'd probably let ourselves get overwhelmed if we stopped too much, to think about it too much, because it was happening so quickly that all we could really do was go with it, and be open to the fact that things were changing. I think that's one of the hardest steps really to doing, I guess, something like this, or like you said, reinventing yourself is being ready to take that next step, or being open to these changes and challenges that come your way. And once we kind of accepted that and we're just ready to, to let go and be open to what was coming, it was incredible, the doors that opened up and the opportunities that presented themselves. It's really surreal. I mean, I don't know how it's going to feel to actually see the film, when the first time we actually get to watch it, it's going to be crazy. I don't even know what that's going to feel like. It truly is a love story, Steve. I mean, that your entire life, to me, if somebody said, how would you characterize it? I'd say it's a love story. It's a love story of your passion for animals since you were little, of your love for each other, of the love that you found when you adopted and raised Esther and take care of her, the love for the animals, planet, people. I mean, it's a beautiful love story. And I think it's all about what you have just articulated so well, which is you just found your purpose, and you have, right? Yeah, absolutely. And it's easy to work really, really hard at something and do something that may seem a little bit crazy when it doesn't feel like work to you, if that makes sense. Yeah. There's no denying. I mean, having Esther in the house has definitely been a challenge, beyond challenges at times, but I wouldn't trade it for the world, which means handling it and dealing with the problems she presents are not really all that big of a deal to me. We'll get out. She's worth it. So Any advice for people who want to,
reinvent themselves, what would you tell people who want to find a way forward through, I mean, we're in a pandemic, there's a lot of challenges right now. People are struggling with either their jobs or their futures and trying to determine who they are and what they want to do. What's your advice to people right now?
I never imagined that I would be the person I think that I am today. If you had asked me 10 years ago where I saw myself, it wasn't here. So nothing is too far out of reach or too far out in left field. If you can, it's going to sound so hokey, right? But if you can dream it, you can do it.
Yeah.
It's really that. I'm not going to say it's simple, because it's not simple. You've got to be ready to take those steps. There's so many moving pieces. I guess maybe if you had say, I'm a rambler, Arlene, I know you know that about me. I just talk and talk. But I guess the ultimate first step is that being, not brave maybe isn't the right word, but taking that first step, knowing that you want to make a change, and knowing that you're ready to do something different, and taking that first step towards it. It doesn't mean you're going to hit the goal the first step that you take, but you're never going to hit it if you don't take that first step. So I think that would be my best advice is, get out there and take that first step. See where it takes you. We didn't know when we pressed go on that Facebook page that it would end up with a feature film and, best-selling books in a sanctuary in Campbellville, but we took that step and we're ready to see where it took us.
And the other thing you did that I would like people to think about too is not only did you take the step together, but you knew how to lean on people around you. The fundraising efforts that you did and the outpouring of, you were open to letting yourself be vulnerable by saying you needed the money to do these things, and people supported you as a result. And I think right now, as we're all feeling more vulnerable because we're home, because there's uncertainty in our lives, because we're not sure what's going to happen next, the world is changing quickly, that the more we can allow ourselves to feel vulnerable, the more strength we find.
Absolutely. And there are always going to be people that want to support you. Yeah. There always is. You got to lean on the people around you and for every aspect of it, emotional support, physical, all of it. You need to have a good support network around you. And we've been very lucky with that. On the hardest days, there was always somebody there we were able to lean on.
Well, I want to thank you for you brighten up my social feeds so much. I have so much joy in the pictures you post, and I feel I can be in your living room because I have been in your living room, and I can feel like I'm a part of it even remotely. And I am so grateful for the effort and energy you put out into the world, you and Derek. Please pass on my love to him, and
I certainly will.
Big love to you as well. And thank you for taking the time to talk to us today, Steve. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me, Arlene. It really is an honor and a privilege. Thank you.
When Steve and Derek decided to keep Esther after realizing that she was going to continue to grow, it forced them to reevaluate how they lived their lives and to reconsider what mattered to them. Their entire lives took on a reinvention in order to accommodate Esther, not only because of her size and the fact that she didn't fit where they lived anymore, but because of the awareness that she brought to them. Reinvention comes in many forms and comes for many reasons. And in this case, it came because a little pig created the biggest hearts that you can possibly imagine by sharing love with everyone. Stay safe and stay human. Thanks for listening. This podcast is made possible by the great folks at Venture Communications. Thanks to our engineers, writers, producers, and all the folks who work really hard to bring you these great stories of reinventions each and every week.